Hello and welcome to Quiz Time. I'm Jess, and today I have a quiz spanning from the 1950s all the way to the 1980s. So let's go back in time. Which 1957 kitchen gadget was recalled because it could unexpectedly catch fire while making breakfast? Toast-O-Matic, automatic popper, or Sunbeam Radiant Control Toaster? Sunbeam Radiant Control Toaster. Which 1980s public phone booth became a local legend after calls from it sometimes connected to the past? The Echo Line, the Time Booth, or the Forgotten Call? The Time Booth. Which bizarre marketing stunt in 1971 led to a fast food chain launching burgers from a cannon? Burger King's Whopper Blast, McDonald's Flying Big Mac, or Jack in the Box Rocket Burgers? Jack in the Box Rocket Burgers. Which 1950s luxury car included a built-in record player, making driving difficult without skipping songs? Cadillac Eldorado, Chrysler Imperial, or Ford Skyliner? Chrysler Imperial. What unexpected ingredient did a 1964 soft drink advertisement claim to make their soda electrifying? Lithium, mild radioactivity, or caffeine-infused sugar? Lithium. Which 1970s TV broadcast mysteriously cut out, replacing a primetime show with a strange coded message for several minutes? Max Headroom Incident, The Blue Screen Takeover, or Southern Television Interruption? Southern Television Interruption. What did NASA accidentally drop onto an astronaut's helmet during a 1969 moon mission, causing momentary panic? A camera, a rock sample, or a screwdriver? A camera. Which forgotten 1950s toy was banned after reports that it could be accidentally explode in hot water? Atomic marble set, blast ball, or clackers? Clackers. Which 1980s celebrity's perfume was recalled because it contained an ingredient that made wearers extremely light sensitive? Cher, Joan Collins, or Elizabeth Taylor? Cher. In the 1980s, what surprising material was briefly used to make limited edition vinyl records? Ice, glass, or chocolate? Yes, the clue in the picture, it was chocolate. Which 1950s car dealership promotion went wrong when customers bought real horses instead of trade-in vehicles? Horse for a Ford, car swap madness, or anything on wheels? Anything on wheels. Which 1974 fashion trend was discontinued after reports of people getting stuck in public chairs? Vinyl jumpsuits, inflatable pants, or Teflon-coated skirts? Inflatable pants. Which strange policy at a 1950s American diner forced customers to sign a waiver before eating its famous chili? Liability for extreme spice, requirement to eat the whole bowl, or warning about the secret ingredient? Liability for extreme spice. What unexpected technical issue caused the first ever colour TV broadcast in the UK to stop suddenly in 1967? Queen's order, studio error, or a power cut? It was a power cut. Which bizarre 1950s beauty trend had women using a household vacuum cleaner to enhance their facial glow? Cold steam, air suction, or heat press? Air suction. What embarrassing error forced a 1973 James Bond movie poster to be recalled from cinemas after release? No gun, extra hand, or the wrong name? It was the wrong name. Which accidental ingredient in a 1950s chewing gum formula made it unchewable but surprisingly popular? Latex mix, extra wax, or too much mint? Extra wax. What odd premium item did a major airline serve in the 1980s, leading to an immediate policy change? Gold spoons, fine whiskey, or fresh caviar? Gold spoons. Which 1960s sci-fi show unknowingly filmed an entire episode with a tilted camera? Confusing? Star Trek, Lost in Space, or The Twilight Zone? Lost in Space. Which 1970s concert was so loud that it shattered nearby windows and caused complaints from a mile away? The Who, Led Zeppelin, or Black Sabbath? The Who. What mistake in a 1950s soda recipe resulted in customers feeling hyperactive after drinking it? Too much sugar, extra caffeine, or double carbonation? Extra caffeine. Which 1980s video game had rumours that it contained hidden military training instructions? Battlezone, Space Invaders, or Missile Command? Battlezone. What unexpected flaw caused a 1960s amusement park ride to shut down just 3 days after opening? Seats broke, track melted, or riders got trapped? Track melted. Which unusual telephone feature in the 1950s accidentally let people overhear random conversations? Party line, open mic, or crossed wires? Party line. Which 1980s rock hit started as a joke but became a chart-topping song? Eye of the Tiger, We Built This City, or Rock Me Amadeus? Rock Me Amadeus. Which 1950s kitchen appliance was recalled after reports of it unexpectedly exploding? Toaster, popcorn maker, or pressure cooker? The pressure cooker. Which 1970s disco fashion trend included hidden pockets designed to store snacks? Bell bottoms, disco jackets, or platform shoes? Disco jackets. Which 1980s arcade game displayed a hidden message on the screen if the player didn't touch the controls? Gallagher, Pac-Man, or Donkey Kong? Donkey Kong. Which 1960s children's toy was recalled after kids accidentally mistook its colourful pieces for candy? Lego, Play-Doh, or Light-Brite? Light-Brite. Which 1970s fashion trend accidentally started after a washing machine company made a factory mistake? Tie-dye shirts, acid wash jeans, or frayed jackets? Acid wash jeans. They were a firm favourite of mine. Did you have some? Which 1950s car feature was quickly removed after drivers kept mistaking it for something dangerous? Red turn signals, jet-like exhaust, or glow-in-the-dark speedometer? Glow-in-the-dark speedometer. Which 1980s commercial became infamous for a misleading claim that led to a public outrage and lawsuits? Diet pill ad, miracle microwave ad, or instant hair growth ad? Instant hair growth ad. Which 1960s sci-fi gadget was later revealed to have been inspired by a real-life military prototype? Jetsons flying car, Lost in Space robot, or Star Trek communicator? Star Trek communicator. Which strange 1950s kitchen invention promised to toast bread in an entirely new way, but failed miserably? Steam toaster, magnetic toaster, or infrared toaster? Steam toaster. Which 1970s fast food chain introduced a menu item that was so disliked it was pulled within weeks? McPizza, Taco Bell fries, or Burger King soup? Yeah, the clue in the picture, Burger King soup. Which 1980s pop star was briefly banned from MTV after a music video was deemed too futuristic? Prince, Madonna, or David Bowie? It was David Bowie. Which 1950s dessert trend started after a famous actor claimed it was his secret to staying young? Chiffon pie, Jello salads, or ice cream cakes? Jello salads. Which unexpected reason caused a major 1970s airline to stop serving peanuts on flights? Allergies, shortages, or passenger complaints? Shortages. Which famous 1980s cartoon had to change a character's colour after it caused issues on early TV screens? Smurfs, Thundercats, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Which 1960s board game was nearly banned because parents believed it was encouraging children to break rules? Twister, Operation, or Mousetrap? That was Twister. Which 1970s rock band accidentally caused a stadium blackout due to their extreme stage lighting? Kiss, AC/DC, or Pink Floyd? Kiss. Which 1950s TV show theme song was originally rejected by producers but later became a classic hit? The Twilight Zone, The Lone Ranger, or Leave It to Beaver? The Twilight Zone. Which 1980s video game console had a controller so complicated that even its designers struggled to use it? Atari Jaguar, Intellivision, or ColecoVision? Intellivision. Which unusual 1960s car feature was removed after drivers reported feeling dizzy while using it? Bubble windshield, rotating headlights, or spinning speedometer? Spinning speedometer. Which 1970s snack food became popular after an accidental ingredient mix-up created a new flavour? Nacho Doritos, barbecue Pringles, or ranch Fritos? Nacho Doritos. Which 1950s advertising slogan was unintentionally funny due to a translation error in another country? Pepsi's Come Alive, Ford's Go Further, or KFC's Finger Licking Good? Pepsi's Come Alive. Which 1980s horror movie had audiences fainting in theatres due to a particularly intense scene? The Fly, Poltergeist, or The Exorcist? Poltergeist. Which 1970s fashion item contained a hidden feature that people later discovered was completely useless? Zipped knee pants, platform shoe pocket, or reversible tie? Platform shoe pocket. Which 1950s safety test for new cars accidentally created a bizarre myth about human dummies coming to life? Too lifelike appearance, unexpected vocal sounds, or movements after crashes? Movements after crashes. Which 1980s vending machine model was discontinued because it unintentionally caused panic among late-night customers? Played loud alarms, dispensed fake money, or the screen flashed eerie faces? The screen flashed eerie faces. Which forgotten 1970s board game included a rule that made players believe it could predict real-life events? Destiny Dice, Mystery Mirror, or the Oracle game? The Oracle game. Which 1960s restaurant menu experiment resulted in customers ordering far more than they could eat? Glow-in-the-dark menus, 3D hologram food images, or scratch and sniff pages? Scratch and sniff pages. Which 1950s children's TV character caused a strange nationwide trend of kids mimicking a dangerous action? Swallowing marbles, jumping off rooftops, or walking backwards in the streets? Walking backwards in the streets. Which 1970s fast food promotion had to be shut down after customers started aggressively competing for overprizes? Burger King Mystery Box, Taco Bell's Gold Coin Challenge, or McDonald's Moon Burger Race? Burger King's Mystery Box. Which 1980s experimental toy had to be recalled after parents discovered it could interfere with TV signals? Talking Teddy, Sonic Boom Ball, or remote-controlled Ghost? Talking Teddy. Which 1960s space experiment was abandoned after astronauts claimed the equipment started reacting in eerie, unexplainable ways? Floating compass, sound wave tester, or artificial gravity box? Floating compass. Which 1950s mail-order product was discontinued after customers reported it arriving in completely unexpected shapes? Inflatable hats, DIY frozen meals, or pre-folded paper aeroplanes. Inflatable hats. Which 1970s horror movie screening left audiences so disturbed that theatres had to install emergency exits? Midnight Screams, The Silent Room, or The Face That Watches? The Face That Watches. Which forgotten 1980s snack food was pulled after reports that its colour changed when exposed to moonlight? Star Bites, Lunar Lollipops, or Night Glow Chips? Night Glow Chips. Which 1950s celebrity's autograph became mysteriously valuable after a rumour claimed it held a hidden code? Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, or Elvis Presley? Yeah, the clue in the picture again, it was Elvis Presley. Which 1970s summer camp activity had to be cancelled after campers insisted they saw glowing shapes in the water? Firefly hunt, midnight canoeing, or Whispering Pines hike? Midnight canoeing. Which 1980s urban legend about a popular soda brand started after people misinterpreted a marketing experiment? Pepsi's hidden message, Coca-Cola's colour change, or Dr. Pepper's fake ingredient? Pepsi's hidden message. Which bizarre 1960s restaurant seating design was abandoned after customers felt uncomfortable eating inside them? Egg-shaped booths, rotating tube tables, or floating chairs? Rotating tube tables. Which 1950s candy had a secret ingredient that manufacturers refused to reveal, causing wild speculation? Fizz beads, mystery mints, or blackout chews? Blackout chews. Which 1970s fashion trend disappeared after rumours spread that it altered body temperature in strange ways? Thermo t-shirts, reflective jeans, or neon socks? Reflective jeans. Which 1980s radio station pulled a hit song after listeners reported hearing eerie background noises at night? Midnight Echo, Silent Frequencies, or The Whisper of Time? Silent Frequencies. Which 1960s experimental film was never officially released after audiences claimed it made them forget details of their day? Colourless Dreams, Vanishing Moments, or The Flicker Experiment? The Flicker Experiment. Which 1950s amusement park attraction was closed after riders kept reporting identical dreams afterward? The Loop of Time, Tunnel of Secrets, or The Echo Chamber? The Echo Chamber. Which forgotten 1970s TV special was only aired once after viewers found the visuals too unsettling? Static Visions, The Empty Stage, or The Puppet Room? The Puppet Room. Which 1980s action figure was recalled after parents claimed it made eerie noises when no batteries were inside? Robo Knight, Phantom Raider, or Echo Warrior? Echo Warrior. Which 1960s unexplained radio transmission led to speculation about a lost government project? Project Signal, The Midnight Code, or The Silent Frequency? The Midnight Code. Which 1950s unexplained train station event left passengers convinced they had travelled back in time for minutes? The missing clock, the timeless express, or the echoed departure? The timeless express. Which 1980s magazine issue became legendary after people claimed its pages changed colour under candlelight? Secret Issue 14, Midnight Edition, or The Hidden Print? Midnight Edition. Which 1950s airline experiment failed after passengers reported hearing whispers from an empty section of the plane? Silent seat design, echo wall, panellings, or soundproof cabin? Echo wall, panellingus rare. Which unexplained issue forced a major 1980s arcade game to be pulled from stores after just weeks? It made kids dizzy, caused static shocks, or had impossible levels? It made kids dizzy. Which 1980s arcade game was mysteriously pulled from markets after rumours spread that it caused strange dreams? Dark Maze, Phantom Grid, or Echo Chamber? Phantom Grid. Which 1970s vending machine model confused customers by sometimes dispensing items that weren't on the menu? Time Snacker, Quantum Bites, or Memory Munch? Memory Munch. Which 1960s amusement park ride closed after riders reported seeing people in mirrors who weren't there? The Time Spiral, the Hall of Whisperers, or the Reflection House? The Reflection House. Which 1950s pocket gadget was recalled after users claimed it reacted strangely when exposed to moonlight? Glow dial, midnight compass, or shadow watch? Midnight compass. Which 1970s cereal box prize was discontinued after kids reported it giving them eerie, accurate answers to questions? Mystery decoder, Echo coin, or the Oracle card? The Oracle card. Which 1980s nightclub was shut down after guests reported hearing music from a decade that hadn't yet happened? Future Beats, Phantom Sound, or Midnight Echo? Future Beats. Which 1960s store experiment ended after customers claimed certain mannequins subtly changed poses overnight? Silent models, lifelike figures, or the moving display? The moving display. Which 1950s highway billboard became infamous after drivers claimed it seemed to change text when glanced at quickly? Blinking letters, midnight warning, or the vanishing sign? The vanishing sign. Which 1970s film scene had to be reshot because an actor's reflection appeared doing something different? The Final Door, The Last Frame, or The Silent Window? The Silent Window. Which 1980s hotel room was permanently sealed after multiple guests reported seeing an extra door that wasn't there? Room 219, The Shadow Suite, or The Disappearing Door? The Disappearing Door. Which 1950s magazine ad was pulled after readers swore the background details changed between print copies? Hidden message, the shifting ad, or the secret image? The shifting ad. Which 1960s school textbook was reprinted after students noticed that one sentence kept subtly changing each year? The living text, the changing line, or the missing chapter? The changing line. Which 1970s radio broadcast became legendary after callers reported hearing a voice that didn't belong to the station? The lost signal, the extra frequency, or the midnight transmission? The extra frequency. Which 1980s shopping mall directory was removed after people insisted certain stores appeared only on certain days? Phantom shops, the missing floor, or the changing map? The changing map. Which 1950s post office rule changed after people kept receiving letters with future dated postmarks? The lost mailbag, the postmark mystery, or the time-stamped letters? The postmark mystery. Which 1970s bus route was cancelled after passengers repeatedly claimed to see buildings that weren't supposed to exist? Route 11A, the Phantom Stop, or the Shifting Street? The Shifting Street. Which 1960s wristwatch was discontinued after wearers swore it ticked slightly faster whenever nobody looked? The time trick, the blink timer, or the silent watch? The blink timer. Which 1980s toy was pulled from shelves after parents claimed it made sounds even with the batteries removed? Echo doll, talking ghost, or shadow friend? Echo doll. Which 1950s drive-in movie was pulled after audiences repeatedly saw a shadowy figure walking across the screen? The extra scene, the empty seat, or the wandering shape? The wandering shape. Which 1970s experimental playground slide was shut down after kids reported a strange static charge at the bottom? The buzz slide, the static spiral, or the electric chute? The buzz slide. Which 1960s department store fitting room was removed after customers reported glimpsing unfamiliar mirror reflections? The silent mirror, the changing image, or the third reflection? The third reflection. Which forgotten 1960s vending machine experiment baffled users by offering items that had nothing to do with food? Books, socks, or goldfish? Goldfish. Which 1950s radio station accidentally broadcast a conversation from an unknown source that never identified itself? The mystery call, the unknown voice, or the lost transmission? The unknown voice. Which 1970s hospital elevator was shut down after staff claimed it sometimes opened to an empty, non-existent floor? The lost floor, the silent level, or the empty hall? The lost floor. And your last one. Which strange 1970s home design trend later led to health concerns, forcing homeowners to remove it? Carpeted bathrooms, glow in the dark walls, or inflatable furniture? Carpeted bathrooms. So, how did you do today? Drop your score in the comments below, and of course, like and subscribe so you get notified every time we post a new quiz. And join us next time on Quiz Time.